Diddy woke up this morning inside the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn. The federal jail has been called, quote, hell on earth.
He can't go into a regular housing unit because somebody will take him out for sure.
Diddy's attorney revealing the worst thing about jail for the rapper. According to People magazine, his lawyer said, quote, I think the food's probably the roughest part of it.
I would expect that he would not be in the general population. His incredibly high celebrity status makes him a very, very attractive target for assault.
One of hip-hop's biggest moguls is currently locked up in conditions described as hell on earth, stripped of power, and forced to live under constant watch. This isn't a movie. This is Diddy's life right now.
We speak after a judge denied his request for bail a second time, and the place where he's locked up now getting a lot of attention. The Metropolitan Detention Center, the only federal jail in New York City, is known for violence, poor conditions, and a string of celebrity detainees. And Diddy's attorneys want him out. NBC News' Yasmin Youssein has more.
From his $48 million Miami mansion to hell on earth where chaos reigns. Just some of the words used to describe the Metropolitan Detention Center where Sean Diddy Combs is now being held without bail after pleading not guilty to sex trafficking and racketeering charges.
Combs abused, threatened, and coerced victims to fulfill his sexual desires, protect his reputation, and conceal his conduct.
He is not the first high-profile inmate to pass through these walls. Ghislaine Maxwell, R. Kelly, Pharma Bro, Martin Shkreli, and crypto fraudster Sam Bankman-Fried, all as they waited for their federal criminal trials, called this jail home. But the conditions of the prison are far from homey, notoriously described as, quote, dreadful, as one judge put it. Some on the bench have even moved away from sending nonviolent defendants there. In April, a group of detainees that prosecutors said were MS-13 gang members in court documents stabbed an inmate 44 times in an attack caught on camera. 2 shivs were recovered from the attack. You see them here. The victim survived. And in the last 3 years alone, 4 inmates have died by suicide. And violence is not the only issue. Accusations of medical neglect, staffing shortages, smuggling of drugs, some allegedly facilitated by employees. At least 6 staff members charged with crimes in the last 5 years, according to the AP. Some accused of accepting bribes and providing contraband.
I've had clients describe NBC as hell, as the worst conditions they've been in.
Lance A. Clark is a federal defense attorney who's been there many times.
Now, if the government is going to mandate that they are responsible for your well-being, they have to ensure the safety of your well-being.
Occupy the streets until they get heat.
In the winter of 2019, protests over a power outage left inmates without light or heat for a week in the cold.
Understand how cold it must be in those cells, and not to have any electricity, any lights, and to not be able to communicate with your family is just inhumane.
The prison has about 1,200 detainees and is the only federal prison in the nation's largest city. The DOJ shut down New York City's other federal jail, the Metropolitan Correctional Center, back in 2021, 2 years after Jeffrey Epstein died by suicide.
What happens when a celebrity accustomed to luxury and privilege is thrown into one of the most notorious jails in the country? How does Sean Diddy Combs, a man who built his empire in the limelight, fare behind bars? With leaked information revealing chilling details of his day-to-day reality, we're diving into the brutal conditions inside Brooklyn's Metropolitan Detention Center, a place infamous for housing high-profile names like Jeffrey Epstein and R. Kelly, yet also condemned for its deplorable treatment of inmates.
Diddy woke up this morning inside the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn. The federal jail has been called, quote, hell on earth.
Some of the shocking things that you see are the manufacturing of weapons, assaults. Inmates hid cell phones within their rectal cavity. Jails and prisons are very different from free society.
We spoke with Cameron Lindsay, the former warden of Diddy's jail. The facility accommodates around 1,200 detainees and once housed R. Kelly and Jeffrey Epstein's accused co-conspirator, Ghislaine Maxwell.
I survived what I've been through.
I would expect that he would not be in the general population. His incredibly high celebrity status makes him a very, very attractive target for assault. He would be locked in that cell 23 hours a day, 3 showers a week. My advice would be keep quiet, keep to yourself. It has to be more of a culture shock.
A rep for the Federal Bureau of Prisons tells ET that earlier this year, they appointed an urgent action team to address issues. It's their mission to operate safe, secure, and humane facilities.
From daily psychological check-ins to reports of special treatment, conflicting stories paint a complex picture of Diddy's time in custody. But as we dig deeper, one question lingers. Does his fame shield him from the horrors of MDC, or has it made his experience even worse?
I want to bring in Larry Levine. He is a former federal prisoner who served time at 11 institutions of various security levels in 5 different states, and he now advises people who are about to go to prison as the founder and director of Wall Street Prison Consultants. And of course, he's a friend of the show. So breaking news right now, Larry, I am just getting word. People magazine says it's got a source on the inside that tells them that P. Diddy's on suicide watch tonight. Do your sources confer the same information? Are they saying it was possible?
Hey, real quickly, all that commissary stuff, he's not getting any of that because people in the SHU have an abbreviated list. So he's out of luck. No stake for him. Yeah, he is on suicide watch. This guy thought he would have went home. All of a sudden, he didn't get bond. Remember, the first night that he was there, he was like an overnight guest. When they called his bond hearing, now they checked him into the system, and reality has hit him. And I understand that he has a shrink coming by his cell to see him several times a day. And now there's talk about putting him in, it's like a bubble. It's like a cell that has like a plexiglass wall in it where they have inmates watching you. That's actually their job, to keep an eye on the inmates that are on suicide watch. Another error that I guess some warden told you this. There are sentenced inmates there. They're called cadre inmates. They don't have to be white collar inmates, but they're doing maintenance on the building. And the problem why there's a lot of violence there, they have housing units. And they're mixing bank robbers, drug dealers, rapists with white collar people. And this is why Diddy, he can't go into a regular housing unit because somebody will take him out for sure. Somebody's gonna get a lot of street credibility out of this. People that are doing substantial time that know they're never getting out. They'll just kill the guy. No questions asked.
As the world watches Diddy's high-profile case unfold, insider sources begin leaking details that throw us right into the thick of it. In one corner, we have reports of a psych team visiting Diddy multiple times daily. According to prison consultant Larry Levine, who spoke out in a recent interview, Diddy isn't officially on suicide watch, but Levine's source indicates a routine checkup from mental health staff, a step intended to monitor his adjustment to prison life. And while these check-ins may sound comforting, they also hint at the harsh reality of what it takes to cope in a place like MDC.
Inmate and director and founder of Wall Street Prison Consultants, Larry Levine, joins me now. Larry, welcome to the show. Thanks for being with me.
Glad to be with you.
So this jail's conditions, have been described as dirty, notorious for mice, maggots, inmate violence, power outages. You spent 10 years in 11 different facilities, so you know what life is like for him right now. Take us behind the scenes.
I was also at MDC Los Angeles. It's like a cookie cutter of the MDC in New York. So yeah, I do know. But he's sitting in the SHU. He's in the hole. And this guy is going through loneliness, anxiety, desperation. He's on suicide watch. And they hand out like psych meds, like they're M&Ms to these inmates to try to get them to cope with what's going on. So his entire existence is to sit in this little cell, essentially. He can shower 3 times a week. He's not getting any real visits. If his lawyer does a legal visit, they have to come upstairs into the special housing unit to see him. Now, have you seen these reports about all these commissary items? they say that he could buy any of those?
What was one of them? Steak or something?
Ribeye, steak,
Yeah.
I mean, all kinds of nonsense. He's in the shoe, people. He's in a special housing unit. He cannot buy things off the regular commissary list.
On the other hand, Levine suggests that Diddy's receiving what could be viewed as preferential treatment, including extra showers, a luxury other inmates might not have. But don't be fooled into thinking Diddy's living it up. Far from his Miami mansion, he's now confined to a cramped cell in a facility infamous for violent incidents, fatal altercations, and deteriorating infrastructure. Life here isn't like anything he's ever known, says Levine. In fact, Diddy's new home has been likened to a war zone by legal experts. MDC Brooklyn is notorious for violent outbreaks, with recent inmate deaths and stabbings highlighting just how dangerous it is. Levine puts it bluntly, he's not playing chess, he's surviving.
Look, if he makes it to GP, general population, someone's going to stick a knife in him. They're going to put some bars of soap in a sock and boom, they're going to pop him over the head and split his head open like a watermelon. They cannot GP him at all. There's a better chance of Jesus appearing in front of us right now than him making general population. He's safe where he is at. There's no reason to move him. And this nonsense about him getting bail, they're never going to give him bail. He wants to go to Essex County, New Jersey, to go to a cushy jail there. Remember, he's not a federal inmate. He's a U.S. Marshal detainee. So they just house him at MDC. And in order to send him to Jersey, they would have to transport him back and forth several times a week with like 6 marshals. They put him in one car, and there'd be a car behind him and a car in front of him. They're not going to do that. So his life essentially at this point is just screwed. And I don't see him ever getting out. And remember, he's fighting his case.
The Metropolitan Detention Center, or MDC Brooklyn, is a name most people only hear in news stories about criminal cases gone wrong. Diddy's cell isn't just a room. It's a stark, bare existence within walls that have seen their share of high-profile prisoners and even darker secrets. Unlike the lavish lifestyle he's used to, MDC is infamous for being an ongoing tragedy, as one judge put it, a facility where violence and despair seem to thrive.
MDC, which houses approximately 1,200 people, mostly those who are arrested and those who are awaiting trial, as well as those serving short sentences, this is a facility that has been plagued with issues: violence, deplorable conditions, not enough manpower, drug smuggling. In fact, earlier this year, New York Representative Dan Goldman stated he would file a formal request for an investigation into the MDC. He released a statement saying, quote, "Over the last 2 years, there have been steady reports of deteriorating conditions at MDC harming inmates and correctional officers alike, including chronic understaffing, perpetual solitary confinement, and widespread violence." And then he said how a federal judge earlier this year cited the prison system's dreadful conditions as a reason not to remand a defendant to MDC. He said, quote, "Earlier this year, I toured MDC with the warden and executives from the Bureau of Prisons, all of whom acknowledged the improvements needed at the facility. Unfortunately, conditions have only gotten worse."
The descriptions are bleak. Overcrowded cells, frequent lockdowns, and restricted access to basic necessities like showers, exercise, and outdoor time.
Today we learned a local family had to make the tough decision to take a loved one off life support. The incidents that ultimately killed that man happened while he was an inmate at the Metropolitan Detention Center. He is the 5th MDC inmate, though, to die this year. That's 5 deaths in less than 6 months.
This year, 5 people have died while they were inmates at the Metro Detention Center.
It's sad to say that it's not surprising.
Albuquerque attorney Matt Coit, who's brought many lawsuits against MDC over 2 decades, says there are 2 long-running problems. One is inmates not getting the medical care they need.
Just think of all the people who didn't die, who didn't get medical care, who are released and their conditions have been exacerbated or unattended.
And Coit believes the correctional officers in charge of keeping everyone safe are often too violent.
The second distinct problem has been a culture of violence within the custodial staff. Think of all of the people who suffer at the hands of a violent custodial staff on a daily or weekly basis.
In our research, many deaths over the last few years have been suicides, and many allegedly involve people who are going through drug withdrawal. Coit says every jail should be prepared to help inmates suffering from a drug addiction.
It's not just about confinement, it's about survival. According to Levine, Diddy's learning that survival isn't just physical, it's mental too. This is where the psychological check-ins come in. Though Diddy isn't on official suicide watch, the frequent visits from the psych team underscore the toll these conditions are taking on him. Imagine the shift, from mansion to isolation in a metal box, and from a world where he's in control to one where he's at the mercy of the system. It's a radical shock, not just to the body, but to the mind. Even within the dire environment of 1600, Diddy's fame makes him stand out. Sources confirm that he's being housed in the Special Housing Unit, or SHU, which is like a prison within a prison. The SHU is typically reserved for inmates deemed at risk, either to themselves or others, and it offers an extra layer of security. But this level of attention isn't necessarily a perk. It can mean near total isolation, which can break even the toughest minds.
Didn't hear us tell you about prisoners being put into segregation at the Bernalillo County Jail, but we've never gotten to see what that looks like until tonight. Action 7 News reporter Regina Reese takes us on an exclusive tour and shows us where a man accused of shooting a cop is being held.
So Regina, this is the segregation intake 4 unit. This is where you house all inmates that are administrative segregation with a high classification.
Behind the doors of maximum classification segregation at the Metropolitan Detention Center. Maximum security for the inmates who are put in there. Inmates like Christopher Cook. He's charged with attempted murder after Albuquerque police say he shot one of their own, Officer Lou Golson, during a traffic stop.
There's 4 tiers to a pod in the maximum unit, in the cage area.
Each inmate is in a cell by himself. They get just 1 hour out of the cell each day to shower, use the phone, and talk to other inmates. Only 1 inmate is allowed out at a time.
Typically, a lot of inmates do sleep. They do review legal material, correspondence, mail. Typically like to read a lot too, and hopefully not cause disturbances while they're in custody.
Inmates in segregation have the option to spend an hour each day outside, but they have to be in these enclosures, and they are in these by themselves. Some of those inmates, including Christopher Cook, wear these red high-risk jumpsuits.
Certain individuals that are high profile initially, they are a little more observed through checks to ensure their safety as well as the safety of staff.
And in dealing with these inmates, the jail says safety is an absolute must.
Beyond the physical and mental challenges, Diddy's incarceration brings a heartbreaking family angle. His children, 7 in total, are on the outside, reeling from his arrest. Sources close to the family reveal that Diddy's primary worry isn't for himself, it's for his kids. Reports indicate that he's had brief phone calls with his family, but with limited contact, those precious conversations are few and far between.
More than a month after their father's arrest, the children of disgraced music producer Sean Diddy Combs are speaking out. In a joint statement posted to social media, 6 of the embattled music mogul's children rallied in support of their dad. The statement posted to Instagram by Combs' son Quincy Brown reads, quote, "The past month has devastated our family. Many have judged both him and us based on accusations, conspiracy theories, and false narratives that have spiraled into absurdity on social media. We stand united, supporting you every step of the way. We hold on to the truth, knowing it will prevail, and nothing will break the strength of our family. We miss you and love you, Dad." Combs' children, Justin Dior, Christian King, Chance, Delilah, and Jesse, were all listed as collaborators and tagged in the post.
As his attorneys push for a change of location, perhaps even suggesting a move to a facility in New Jersey, MDC remains resolute in keeping him on site, citing security protocols and institutional policy. And then there's the food, a basic part of life most take for granted. But here, it's another element that adds to the daily grind of life in detention. MDC is notorious for its poor quality meals. Diddy's attorney recently commented, saying, "The food's probably the roughest part of it. It's a small detail, but it gives us a window into how drastically different his life has become."
Diddy's attorney revealing the worst thing about jail for the rapper. According to People magazine, his lawyer said, quote, "I think the food's probably the roughest part of it."
The meals are supposed to be nutritionally balanced and edible. He would receive 3 meals per day. Very basic meal expectations.
Diddy's new diet going on more than 3 weeks behind bars. The New York Post reports he was served Swedish meatballs after pleading not guilty to his charges of and racketeering.
He will have his meals delivered to him. He would not go to a dining hall in a high-rise like the MDC Brooklyn. The correctional officer on the unit delivers them to the detainee or the inmate.
So, what's next for Diddy? The man who once ruled hip-hop now faces an uncertain future in one of the country's toughest jails. As he awaits trial, the stories of preferential treatment and psychological check-ins might sound like small comforts. But when you're a celebrity in a place like MDC, those small things can be a lifeline, albeit a fragile one. One thing is clear: in this hell on earth, there are no true escapes. For Diddy, this experience is more than just incarceration. It's a brutal reminder of the price of freedom. And as his story unfolds, one question remains: how will he endure the months to come, locked away in a system that shows no mercy, no matter who you are?